Okay, Jeffrey.
You look very nice.
Thank you. I put on real human clothes today. And I'm still wearing sweatpants. That's why you gotta keep you on your toes, Jeff. You can't be seeing me dressed in normal clothes all the time. I would lose my allure. It's easier to brighten than to darken. Even on the darkest days. Something light. I hope nobody can see your little dribbles. You guys see his dribbles?
Oh, they definitely can.
Are you awake? I've been awake since 8. You've been awake since 10 minutes ago. Jeff's got his coffee. It's not a board game sim brew. Hello everyone and welcome back to Foster the Meeple, a channel all about
board games and comic books.
Exactly. We are here today with another episode of Pumped Up Kickstarters, where we are going to be discussing a Kickstarter that just launched yesterday. Literally yesterday. And that Kickstarter, that game, is heavier than it looks.
It is.
Is Age of Comics, The Golden Years. And this is published by Lirius Games, who were kind enough to send us this prototype to show you. As I just mentioned, it is a prototype, so this is not the finalized copy, though this is a very far along prototype. So any B-roll that you see, of course, is subject to change. So we are going to start with a brief overview of the game, and then we are going to get into some of our thoughts, so you can figure out whether or not you want to back this Kickstarter. Am I right? Let's start off with a little story. Age of Comics, The Golden Years is a worker placement strategy game. You will play the role of a comic book publishing company during the Golden Age of Comics, 1938 to 54. Hire artists and writers, publish amazing comic books, send out salesmen on the map to acquire the best newsstands for distribution, build your fan base, and create the best comic book empire. Now, let's talk a little bit maybe about how the game plays. So this is a worker placement game. You are a comic book publishing company competing against other comic book publishing companies in order to put out the best comic books. You don't want to put out trash. However, you can put out ripoffs.
Yep.
So you have a big board with many worker placement spaces. And you've got your little editors. And your editors are going to be going out on the board in order to help you do tasks that allow you to produce comic books. So you can hire artists and writers at all different skill levels. Then, of course, once you have artists and writers, you can actually create original comic books in various categories. So there's crime, there's horror, there's romance, there's sci-fi, there's western, and there's superhero. And you can also send out salespeople. There's a huge map on this board with different types of comic books that are for sale. So you send out your salespeople, they collect orders, and then you are able to sell the comic books that you've made for orders.
Yeah, they're like pumping up your comic book.
Exactly. And the whole purpose of this is you're trying to get your comic book to get more fans in order to make more money, in order to be more successful. You're going to be more successful if you create original comic books, but as we mentioned, you can also create rip-offs, which I think is a really cool part of this game because it is a very accurate thing that happens in real life.
With the rip-offs, they take less stuff to make them, essentially.
Yes.
So you can kind of like bully the other person, be like, oh, you've created this superhero comic. I'm going to create a rip-off off of that in order to do certain things. It just kind of like boosts your engine a little bit, but at a little bit of a detriment to yourself. In order to build an original comic, you need to have ideas. So with a rip-off, you don't have to have an idea in order to make it. Pretty straightforward in terms of the way it operates. Once you get into the game and you're playing it, it's very simplistic in terms of like, I'm going to do this thing. It all flows very appropriately.
Yes.
Which is impressive to me.
So let's get into the review a little bit.
In Age of Comics, the biggest thing for me that I wanted to point to is first the components. And again, keep in mind, this is just a prototype. In this game, you're going to have cards, which are basically comic book titles and comic book art that you're going to have in front of you, that you're going to attach to writers and artists in order to create those. They also come with a corresponding like score tile, and all of those score tiles mimic the art. Like, the beauty that's in this game is insanity.
Oh, it's wild.
Every comic book has its own title with its own art. It amazes me that they did that because in most cases it would just be like a generic, like, oh, the superhero just has like a generic art piece on it or a generic title. They did not do that in this game. Everything is unique. It's very colorful. It's very beautiful. And again, I'm super excited to see what they do with the final copy, given that this is a prototype. It's a simplistic rule set mechanically, but there's a lot of strategy in terms of figuring out what the best way to score points is. Jamie and I were both kind of fighting over originals. Neither of us really went down the rip-off route, but I could see after playing, because ultimately there's a mechanic where the more comic books you build, the more like special actions you're going to be able to take. It just kind of like boosts your engine a little bit. And we didn't really go down the rip-off path, and I kind of wish we would have, because I think it would just kind of like be a bit of a race to get more actions out on the board. So there's like little special actions you can take, and one of those special actions is to get another editor that allows you to do more actions. So again, you're just building and building towards endgame. Really, really enjoyed it.
And if you like thematic games, look no further. This game is very similar to Kanban in the way that it works, because literally everything you do makes perfect sense for what you would need to do if you were actually a comic book publisher. Like, you have to hire people and you have to pay those people, and they have to have ideas in order to create something. And when you create something, before you even put a comic book out, there is a special action that you can do to hype up the comic book before you release it, which then when you release it, you get more fans. Every round, you're also decreasing the fans of your comic book, because the comic book's been out for a while, so, you know, it's getting less and less popular. It's gaining you less and less money. But there are different ways that you can increase the fans. That's really cool. And the fact that you actually send out like salespeople to collect orders and things like that, like everything that you do just makes sense.
All the mechanics match the theme. Everything you do in this game matches the theme of making comic books and hyping up comic books, marketing them, selling them, you know, decreasing the fans, just to your point, because it's been out for a while and the fans are like, I've seen this. But then you can do a new campaign and like boost that up. It all makes sense for what you're trying to do in this game.
Everything about the art is perfection. Like the little tiles. And I
mean, look at the...
Beautiful. Even the rip-offs. So with the rip-offs, it's like a bit of a grayed out or a faded version of the original, and the title is slightly different. So one that stood out to me, there was Wings of Liberty, and then the rip-off was Angel of Liberty.
Yeah,
or something like that. And the cover looks very similar, but there's slight changes.
Yeah, it's a bit faded with the color. The other thing too we didn't mention is you can also like get these like color tokens, which represent you like boosting the color version, or the color like... Yeah,
like enhancing the type of ink that you use. Yeah. I loved it. Like, I thought the entire thing was just so much fun.
And the reason why I think we're associating this so much with like Kanban is because it did feel like that flow of the game, not as punishing or whatever as Kanban is, but it feels similar. It gave me those vibes.
Yeah. And there is definitely a competition element within this, because within the game, if I am going for sci-fi comics and then Jeff's like, well, screw you, I'm going to start making sci-fi comics too, then we're competing for endgame victory points, because whoever has the most of that genre gets an extra 2 points in that genre at the end of the game. So you're kind of like having to watch what other people are doing to see whether or not you really care about what they're making, and it can really influence what you do. I also think it's another thing we didn't mention, but the artists and the writers all have like unique names. Some of them are kind of like not rip-off names, but like variations of like popular comic book writers and artists, which is cool.
Every artist and writer has a specialization. So some specialize in superhero comics, some specialize in Western. Yep. And if you're able to use those specializations to build or create a Western themed, it's going to create more fans, because the comic book's going to be better. I did want to mention quickly too, while we did play this at 2-player, so keep that in mind. I do think this would play better at 3 and 4.
I do too.
Just with the limitations of the worker placement spaces and that sort of thing. But what I was doing when I was placing them down is I would like read the artist name, I'd read the writer name. Yeah. I'd be like, blah, 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 and blah, 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 produce, and then read the comic book name. And I just thought it was really cool to like add that little element of, you know, theme into it.
Because that's how you would announce it in an advertisement, you know? Yeah. And the game doesn't take an overly long time to play. I feel like maybe, was it an hour?
Someone asked me that in our Discord, and I said around 45 minutes to an hour. And that was a learn as well.
Yeah, at 2 players. But the rounds go pretty quickly, and every round you're flipping over a different type of comic book that you get to flip over on the sales map, and that's kind of your tracker. So it plays over 6 rounds, because there's 6 types of comic books. I do believe in the Kickstarter, as some stretch goals, that they are going to be putting out different themed comics as well beyond the original 6.
Nice.
So I'm really excited to see that. I knew I was going to like it. This was on our pumped up Kickstarters, like our most anticipated Kickstarters. So I was already excited for it.
And we met the creators of the game.
Yes.
And they're so incredibly kind.
Yes.
They care so much about this game.
They took a lot of care into creating this game.
Yeah. If you like this theme, like if you like comic books, you like the history of comic books, I would definitely check this out. It bleeds theme.
Yes.
Like very, very much so.
So I would say that this is a certified fresh kicks. Certified fresh kicks.
Is that a thing we're doing now?
That's a thing we're doing.
Okay, cool.
So I would definitely recommend check it out on Kickstarter. All of the information for that will be down below. But I think that's all that I had for it. We loved it. And I'm excited to play this more and more and more with more people too.
Yeah. I think your brothers are going to be into that one.
Big time.
Big comic book guys.
Yes. Well, that is all that we have for you today. As I mentioned, Age of Comics, The Golden Years is on Kickstarter now. So don't walk, run. Run to your browser, type it in, hit enter, click the information.
You're embarrassing yourself. Thank you again to Lirius Games for giving us the opportunity to show this to you.
Yes.
We really, really appreciate that.
That is all that we have for you today. So if you're interested in buying board games, not necessarily this one, because this one you have to go to Kickstarter, but other board games, you should first start by checking your friendly local gaming store. And for us, that is...
The Boardroom Game Cafe.
Yeah, Jeff's got a mug. There it is. Ding. Thank you so much for watching. If you like what you see,
please subscribe.
We hope to see you again soon. And now we say goodbye. Goodbye.
Later days. I'll go change.
We call them dribbles. Well, I'm sure it'll dry. YOLO. All right, Jeff. Very good. You ready? A little bit of pep.
You came with a lot of heat this morning.
I did. I'm mad.
What are they called?
They're called rip-offs.
Are they?
Yep.